Hey guys, Thomas the Solar Jr. here, aka Mustached. I'm here to review the movie Jojo Rabbit. And if you end up enjoying this review, then please feel free to consider joining my Patreon page. There'll be the second link in the description below. Any donations are desperately needed. Alrighty then, with that being said, let's talk about Jojo Rabbit. The moment I saw this poster, I was instantly intrigued with the man that seemed to appear to have an Adolf Hitler mustache, only to find out that young Jojo is a Nazi! Dun dun dun! Or a Nazi in training, anyways. So he's a little Nazi boy, or trying to be a Nazi boy, in big old early Germany when Adolf Hitler was in power. And he imagines that Adolf Hitler is his best friend. So Adolf Hitler appears in his imagination, asking him questions, giving him motivations to go about the day and be the best Nazi that he can be. Alright, so he meets his best friend while moving to camp. I believe his name is like Yugi or something like that. And I believe the captain they meet is called Captain K. I'm not 100% sure on the names. And we learn in this camp that all the little kid Nazis have daggers to stabby stab. And we, through their little lecture, we know that the boys get more training and variants of things to do than girls do. And while they're at this camp, they also get told rumors about what Jewish people are like. So they get all these little, like the whole racist thing of like, oh, they're evil and they're beneath us. They're not human. Things that are actually racist. Yeah, and I actually enjoy using that word in the proper context. That's one of my pet peeves is when people misuse the word racist. It's kind of annoying. I'm looking at you, Cinema Sins, and I'm not afraid to call out the biggest YouTubers on the block when I say shit like that, okay? Alright, anyways. So, Jojo's talking with Yugi. And after, like, he has a little moment of failure, where the bad guy, the taller kids call him out and tell him to kill a rabbit. He does not do so, does not do the kill, and he runs off being called Jojo Rabbit. So Adolf Hitler, the imaginary Adolf Hitler, appears and gives a little talk to Jojo about being the best Nazi he could possibly be. So it gives him the confidence to go in as their other kids are like going in for grenade training. So Jojo grabs a grenade from K, tosses it, it hits a tree and lands near his feet. So the grenade goes off. We cut to Jojo getting picked up at the ambulance by his mom. And of course the mom wants him out of this little program. And after his recovery, he's he's told to put up signs for Nazi propaganda. Meanwhile, the mom and him come across as they're like in this outside vineyard, I guess it would be called. I'm not 100% sure. They see these hung people that are there. They're like, there's this little gallows thing, like, and like just the rope. We just see it from the neck down, and you see like the body, the torso down of like people being hung there. So they return home, or he returns home solo while his mom goes off to do something else. And he hears a strange noise upstairs, so he starts to investigate. He finds a hidden room and sees a young woman inside. He freaks out and falls down the stairs. And he sees this young Jewish girl, Elsa, who is taking occupants inside the wall of their house. So she threatens him to not call the police And after Jojo like flees, Hitler appears. Imaginary Hitler appears to talk to him about how to figure out how to handle the situation of dealing with um, this girl being in their house and being a Jewish girl, among other things. Um, and as he re-enters the room with a second knife, because he went in with the first knife and he lost it, he moves back in, gets caught up from behind, loses a second knife, and like talks to. He gets a second talking to. Only for the night to come upon where the mom returns, and Jojo is trying to subtly mention how there are noises upstairs, but without actually saying he saw someone up there. So the mom puts on a little lie saying that there's a ghost or like rats or something, like a myriad of things. So we cut to Jojo at the pool, and he's getting stretched out and held. So he's going to to the commander, and he's asking about, oh, what do I do if I see a Jewish person in my house, and how do I deal with that? And he gets some intel about like how the process would go. And as he returns home, he's offering her a deal to like every situation is going to be bad. You know, if we tell the mom, it's going to be bad. If we tell the people, it's going to be bad. Living here, it's pretty bad. It's like, So Jojo, in his trying to attempt to be the Nazi boy that he is trying to grab intel about how the Jewish people work. But he doesn't have a lot of luck. She grapples him down, and then after the fact, Hitler talks him about this book that he's starting to write. Meanwhile, the mom burns like this little piece of paper, and she talks about how the war is almost over. And Jojo doesn't really care. He's like, yeah, whatever. Or he's like, no, more war. So he's talking back to his mom in a more aggressive tone and challenges his mom. He's like yelling at him. So the mom pretends to be the dad because the dad went out to war, and it's assumed very obviously that he's dead. And through that, she gets him to calm down and then embrace him, and then they do a little dance. So Jojo, after that, when he has a moment alone, he talks to Elsa, and she draws, like he like tells her to like draw where they're from, the Jewish people, and she draws his head instead, and saying they're up here in your imagination. Well, she didn't say in your imagination, but that's essentially what she says. So Jojo goes to the library, and he starts learning about this man that she was involved with named Nathan, and writes some letters pretending to be Nathan, getting her to cry. So he writes a second letter, feeling guilty about doing that, trying to play the balance though, not giving in 100%, but more like 50, or as close as 50 as you can possibly get, I suppose. So anyway, they go over on they have a moment where they're like sitting across from each other, and they're naming off individuals that are either like that would either be a German or Nazi or a Jewish famous person, and they go off, and then Elsa, I guess, wins the exchange at that point. Mentioning Houdini, I believe, is the last one she mentioned, or something like that. So anyways, Jojo, we cut to Jojo outside hanging out with his mom, and she's constantly tying his shoes throughout the movie, very common theme, and then she uses the rabbit lingo to like try to teach him or get it like in his head. So they have a walk and talk, and then they ride home after the fact. Um, so she talks more about when she as in Elsa has another moment with Jojo when they are alone, and she's starting to like sway him with like some altered info about Jewish people, I believe, at this point. So Jojo, Hitler, imaginary Hitler, is getting all upset now. Like, how dare you talk to her? Yeah, I can't do the accent that well, but anyway. So the mom talks with Elsa again, like they had another moment beforehand. And Jojo goes to this office and asks more about what to do with the Jewish people. Has another moment of that. Tells them about the book he's writing, and the commander and this other lady are like, haha, fun. So anyways, he gets a new job where he is placed in a metal suit, and he's told to collect metal, so he does. Meanwhile, he sees his mom, like, leaving this note saying, well, like, the war is ending, Germany will be freed, or whatever, something like that. So Yugi, his friend, comes back, and he's already a soldier at, like, 11 years old. And Jojo steals some pencils for Elsa so she can continue to draw. And then, of course, no surprise, she now is talking to him about how he's not a Nazi and how he's trying to pretend to be a Nazi and things like that. But after that, we get a cut of 5 men walking into the door, and we have a long hall of people going, Heil Hitler! And they start looking around. They're looking all over the house. And the captain comes over, and we get even more exchanges. And Elsa just comes right out, and she claims to be his sister. They go over the book, and she claims she wrote the book while the commander is there, which gives him immediate suspicion, but it turns out that while he is holding her birth certificate, or the true sister's birth certificate, she does get the info wrong, but the commander is like, yep, that's legit, so he's helping them out at this point. After they all leave and Jojo has a moment to himself, Hitler is very upset, yelling at Jojo. After that, he leaves and finds out when he goes to where the hung people are, he sees among them his mom. So they caught his mom and then they put her up there. So now he's all alone with Elsa. And he's so upset that he he has the knife back because the commander gave him his knife back, and he stabs her on this side of the chest, like the upper side of their chest. Then a siren goes off after the fact, and Elsa is like talking about how her parents are like moving around, and Jojo is like listening in, and he checks the outside scene, and we have a little montage here. After he like does his quick check-in, we see a montage of them just hanging around, just the two of them hanging around, getting to know each other, and then we cut to the war breaking out. So Jojo sees Yugi, and they have a weird, bizarre conversation about how other Germans have like sex with dogs or something, like bestiality, versus like love in like terms of age and all this other stuff, because he like Jojo admits like, oh, I fell in love with Elsa or something like that. Anyways, one of the soldiers grabs Jojo when they get split up, who gets brought into the captain, The captain quickly and very wisely calls him a Jewish person, individual. So Jojo is taken away by the American soldiers who are moving in and gunning down people. Um, so he meets back up with Yugi after the fact, and then runs off back home, thinking about like what could have possibly happened. So he returns home, and he's so upset by everything, but he does let out a lie about like what happened. He says that Germany, the Nazis have won. And he looks at the book and he starts looking at it, the one he was writing, and he sees all the pictures, and then he sees all the ones that she drew at the end of it. And then she opens up about how Nathan was dead all along, and that she kind of got him to write those letters for her. Um, so he tells her that they are going to leave. So Hitler appears one last time out of desperation, being like, "This isn't the Nazi way." And Jojo's like, "You know what? Fuck you, Hitler." Kicks him in the nuts. He goes flying out the window. So he goes to Elsa's side. She has her shoes untied, and he finally knows how to tie a shoe properly, so he ties her shoe. They head outside, and she sees the flag, the American flag, pass by. So she knows that he lied. He lied to him. So she kind of slaps him, and he's like, "Yeah, I deserve that." And then they're like, Elsa's like, "So now what do we do?" And then, or Jojo asks that, and then Elsa starts dancing because the mother was all like, dancing is like a part of freedom or an expression of freedom. So they both do their little dance, and that's how the movie ends. And that was Jojo Rabbit. Um, this was a fun ass movie, I'll tell you what. Whew, very good comedy. The only bit that got a little bit repetitive was like when they are all in the house, and then they went on for like, I want to say 2 minutes or something, like going Heil Hitler over and over again. That's like the only part that was like a little bit like, all right, kind of, moving along, folks. Other than that, all the other comedy I feel really is really strong. Um, using very that very strong narrative as a backdrop to that comedy, I feel really helps lend itself to that. Um, and I think this is a very effective movie in terms of how we look at people. I know I'm gonna have one of those deep moments with you for a moment here before I give my final score. But this is a story about we're in 2020 now, and there I've seen in the news like how there are Nazis still out there or whatever. You have those little story pieces, and you have people interacting in that way of like, "Oh, we're gonna get them." Um, and I like how this story is like, she does start out as an aggressor, and he's like, "Oh God." But I do like how she's able to communicate with him in such a way, and luckily with him being so young, that he's able to kind of take in this information. I feel like with youth, that tends to usually typically be the case, that they usually tend to take in information like that. They kind of accept a lot more. Um, and it's about communication. You have someone who's only seen one line of life, as short as it might have been, but they were in this era where you get all this propaganda, and you see everything in the news, and you go, that seems legit. Like, yeah. And that would be relevant in today's standards of like what you see in the news, like that can alter or affect somebody, how people grow up. If you see that many hit pieces going like, this is the wrong, this is the bad, this is, this person or group is the bad group, you're gonna probably start to believe those people are the bad group. And until you have that interaction, until you get out there and realize that, like, oh, they're just people, like, wow, holy fuck, like, this movie addresses that of like, oh, they have a girl or a young woman, I should say, Elsa, as its sort of uh, placeholder of like someone who did start out again as an aggressor, and she goes through her own little character arc as well. Being more and more willing to open up to him, which allows him in turn to open up to her and to see like oh, this isn't like what I've been seeing. That's just not true. What has been presented to me as far as everything else. So I really like a narrative like that. I really like a story like this where you see characters develop, characters grow. Um, Again, I think using the Adolf Hitler bit is surprisingly effective. Um, uh, with the extremes of like in terms of like the period piece that takes place during the war. Um, so of course you have that mentality, and that mentality is fed through what you are taught through media. And again until you realize like until you go to the people who are out there and to actually talk to them and not yell at them, by the way, because that's what she does at the beginning, and it doesn't work. It does not work. It is proven to not work, and yet people still use that approach, and it's kind of like irritating to see when it comes to that. Um, so just talking, joking about, kind of like stringing him along, be like, yeah, you know what, we can be like that, or something along those lines, like sometimes, or like there is a little bit of mysticism behind it. Um, and yeah, so I really like this movie. Man, I think I'd probably give this movie an 8 or a 9 out of 10. Yeah, it's really effective. Pretty good young actor too as well. Um, for both the kids that are, well, it's primarily him, so a pretty good job on that front. There's a line he says, and I don't remember what it is. It's like the line that really, like, he says it twice or three times in the movie, and I don't remember exactly what the line is. But I really, like, I put a smirk on my face every time he said it. Um, so he definitely has a little bit of a gimmick to his character as well, and it's an enjoyable gimmick though, which is always a nice little bit. So again, either a 9 or a 9 out of 10. Really enjoyable. If you have not seen this movie, I highly consider watching it. Um, and with that, that is my review of Jojo Rabbit. And if you enjoyed this review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure to check out those links in the description. One head to my Discord server, the other to my Patreon page. Any donations are desperately needed. And until next time, everyone, bye bye.